Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me in Solomon's Temple. My name is Solomon Izang Ashams. It's so great to be with you, and thank you for inviting yourself. Some of you have invited other people. I was talking to someone in one of the nations in Africa the other day. He was like, "Look, hey, I shared a lot of the links from your YouTube channel to so many people, because I know they needed to really, get to watch some of the stuff that you said about TB Joshua and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you at this time of the day. For some of you guys that are very regular, thank you for coming back. If this is your first time, thank you so much. Just brace yourself, because here we talk about like real serious issues, right? If we offend you in any way, please forgive us in advance, because we're going to offend you, either myself or the guests that I bring in here. They're going to say something that you disagree with. It's not like we're going to curse you. We don't curse here, but it's probably just going to say something that you disagree with. Just forgive us. It's not intentional. We just have different opinions, and it's okay to interrogate, investigate issues. That is very, very important, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Tonight is going to be about having to hear a story, a story that a story of someone who was really seeking God and believed God was present in lives of certain leaders, in the life of a certain community, church community, but then everything turned out to be cultic. Everything turned out to be, if you know, a deep abuse of leadership, right? If you know, when you're dealing with people who are almost like, it's my pastor, it's my prophet bipolar, that's the kind of situation that we're talking about here. And I tell you what, a lot of pastors, prophets, apostles, bishops, a lot of them have mental issues, right? A lot of them have mental issues. They can be very erratic sometimes. You think it's the presence of God when they're erratic? No, it's in the presence of God. It's just them. It's just their situation. And some of them have bipolar. Maybe they don't even know about it. Some of them know about it. Some of them are narcissists. They want to control everything. They don't take a blame for anything. It's just the way that it is. And tonight, one of the leaders that we're going to be looking at, based on the experience of my guest, Minister Sheila, she's going to say a whole lot, then it will be left for you to connect the dot. What we try to do here is to give people the opportunity to share their story. That's what it is, right? So we don't go just trying to talk about a prophet or pastor or whatever. Just like that. No, there must be a story around it. We don't look for stories to tell just from out of nowhere. But I see quite a lot of you guys are here already. Before I go on to some of you guys that are here, let's just watch this promo.
Psalm 23. God has set a table for two. One chair for himself, the king, and the second one, believe it or not, is for you. But of course, the enemy wants a seat at the table too. Anxiety wants a seat, envy wants a seat, worry and frustration want a seat. But don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Look up, go up. You're invited up the mountain of God. Move towards infinite power, splendor, love, and beauty, healing and restoration. When we gaze upon the Almighty, we are changed by the captivation. Empowered to take every thought captive in the battle of the mind. Shame is silenced by his glory, and our future redefined. So draw near to Jesus. The shepherd is good. Our God is faithful. Take the place prepared for you. And don't give the enemy a seat at your table.
All right, so get a copy of that book. Don't give the enemy a seat at your table. We got Victor from Kenya in the house already saying good evening, all watching from Kenya. We also got our brother Alan, also from Kenya. So the Kenyans are here in force. Tandy, hello, Uncle Solomon from the UK. We got Ruby from Trinidad and Tobago up there. And we got Nora from Maryland in the US. Thank you so much. Tochuku is also here. Sweetie from Chiswick in London, that's in the UK. Thank you, Josephine from St. Martin, very small, tiny island, I guess. Also from the US, Billy Johnson. Thank you for connecting. We appreciate you. We got Kim Johnson also from Seattle, Washington, in the USA. Thank you so much. Thank you, Neo from Canada. Saying greetings from Canada, Uncle Solomon, and blessings to everyone. Blessings to you also. From Uganda, we got Alex. We also got Sezi from Uganda. Tahiri, as usual, from the UK. Great Britain, that is. Pearl is here, and also from Botswana. So we got quite a lot of multinationals today. And we got from the UK, also England, to be precise, Joe White. Thank you guys. There's quite a lot of you. There's Evelyn from Switzerland. Quite a lot of you. Don Clark from the Bahamas. Alice from Saint Lucia. Olivier coming in from France. Bonjour, bonsoir, should I say? Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Malia, also from the UK. So we got a huge UK brigade here today. Jessica Morrison. When I think of last election in America, I don't see prophet in America for sure. Yes, there is Thomas Maker. Yes, indeed. Some of them need to repent, Jessica. There's a lot of them that need to repent. Now, they're still trying to justify their failed prophecy. You know, all their failed prophecies, they're still trying to justify it. You don't do that. Humble yourself. You're only human. You miss hearing from God, and it's as simple as that. So, guys, I want to introduce my guests. We're going to be looking at investigating Prophet Brian Carn. Some of you guys are familiar with him. Should I say young man, young prophet that was making quite a lot of waves. And yeah, I'm going to go through a lot of his profile. I did some digging around him, and I'm actually quite shocked because listening to the story of Minister Sheila and looking at what they have, you know, in his website regarding his testimony, who he is just quite shocking. So let me actually do that before I bring in Minister Sheila, right? So this is straight out of his website. You get this on his website. This is what his website says about him. Prophet Brian Carn. Prophet Brian Carn is an international recognized prophetic voice, right? So this is what I want you to hold on to. A preacher of holiness. A preacher of holiness, right? Because tonight, the testimony we're going to hear contradicts anything to do with holiness from start to finish. But you know, when you promote yourself as a preacher of holiness, you know that people are seeking for holiness because they know that holiness brings them closer to God. Holiness is what we desire and how we desire to live. Once you put that out there, you're going to attract people. So for me, all this is a marketing tool. A preacher of holiness? Anyway, there's more to it, but let me just leave it there, and then we'll come back to most of it later. So at this point, please help me welcome my guest, Sheila, all the way from the United States. What state are you there in the United States?
I am in the state of Florida, so you're going to hear my accent heavily. I'm very Southern. Yes, so Florida.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. And please make sure you follow our website, as you can see there, a discipleforchrist.org. A discipleforchrist.org. www, that is, a discipleforchrist.org. I'm not going to say much about her because I really want her to do the talking. But thank you so much. And you shared a little bit of your story with me, but you know, there are so many people that I felt needed to hear your story. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in KCC.
Okay, so before I go into my story, I know that I'm taking a big step by coming onto this platform, but I definitely appreciate you, Uncle Solomon, for accepting me coming on here, because in America, We don't have shows like this. Everything is pushed up under the rug, so no one actually comes out. And so I actually found your channel in searching for and seeking out God, like, trying to figure out what had happened to me, what was going on at that particular church. And so I came across your website. I came across a few other people's website. I was hearing testimonies from women who had gone through similar stuff to what's going on in America. And so I know that it could not have just been going on internationally, but I knew it had to be going on in America as well. It's just nobody. Everyone is scared to come out about it. So I definitely appreciate this platform. So a little bit about me. My name is Sheila Wiley, and I am was born and raised in the United States of America. I've always been in Florida. My father was a reverend. So I've been in church all of my life. So I've loved God. I've developed a relationship with God. So I'm not just a babe coming in, not knowing what's going on. So I definitely know. And so when I'm coming to churches, I'm coming for God. I'm not coming for no other reason. So before I go into it, as you said before, you had mentioned a few key things. I may say some things that may offend somebody, but guess what? When you're telling the truth, it's not going to sound nice to certain people, especially if they believe in that person. But my thing is that I love this scripture, Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of God. I will also forget thy children. So we're coming here, educating, sharing. I would not be putting, as I was telling Uncle Solomon, I'm really going to be putting my business on Front Street, but there's no way I would be putting my business on Front Street if it were not the truth. Like, that's somebody who I'm not. So basically, in my devotion this morning, also, this is how I know I'm supposed to be on here. I was reading, and it was talking about, the devotion was saying, when God gives you a specific song to sing, there will always be those who try to change your tune. Don't compromise. God gives specific visions, certain dreams, unique messages for one reason. He wants those visions, those dreams, those messages, and those specific songs delivered. Do not succumb to the pressure of the crowd who wants to change your delivery. So now my question is, how can change occur when we are so busy hiding the truth? I am an advocate of narcissistic abuse in religion. So it's not easy, because many people, even on this line, many people are religious, and they have and they do not, I hate to say it, but they do not have a firm relationship with God. And so basically it's going to look like I'm criticizing or mocking. But on the other hand, there are some other people, because this happened to me on my platform, where they're so spiritual, they're spiritual policemen, to where now they're like, you're going against the man and woman of God, and they're trying to get me to not talk, but not so. So we're going to talk about it. So basically, in a nutshell, yes, Brian Carn in Jacksonville, Florida, to be exact, I had attended his ministry for 5 years. And then also my situation was where I fell into an adulterous relationship with another pastor, which I can say his name as well, because he totally told on himself in court. So before then, I know people always say allegedly. So I guess just because I'm coming across the street, I'm just going to still say allegedly. But because I was in it, I know it was him. And he's doing more. His name is Ronnie Bryant Sr. He is out of Maryland, and he was a pastor in Michigan. He's still married, but he uses his wife as a cover up. So when he gets in trouble, he can go back and refer to her as if he's the holy man of God, when he really is not. It's just a cover up. So basically, I fell into an adulterous relationship with Ronnie Bryant Sr. I'm not going to be calling them pastors, because as I saw somebody put here that they're charlatans, they're narcissists. There's nothing pastoral about them. As a matter of fact, they're warlocks and they're cult leaders. All right. So going into saying what I need to say, back in September of 2016 was where I was on social media, Facebook, and I had a friend to share a message that Brian Carn was doing live on Facebook. And from that point on, the message, it was like very like, what do you call it? It was very like, it was like, I'm gonna say traumatized. It was drawing me in. So it was very interesting. So from that point on, September 2016, I began following Brian Carn. And then when I heard word that he was having services in Jacksonville, Florida, my friends and I began going to those services. The services seemed to be very powerful. They were always packed. And as a matter of fact, it was truly addictive. And so then from there, I joined his ministry, which was in St. Mary's, Georgia. And that was in 2017. I want to say January 2017 to be exact. All right. So here's my journey from there, just to give that overview. So as I mentioned before, I've been in church all of my life, but I never experienced anything like this at all in church. So basically, for those years as I was going on, everything looked and felt like a regular ministry. You had the preaching, you had the teaching, you had the offerings, you had the songs, you had the per se love, you had the worshiping God, praising God, like the whole 9 yards. And so it was I thought, a very inviting place to be. However, as the time went on, he was always teaching on, and I'm talking about Brian Carn. He was always teaching on women being after him, women liking him. And I'm like, if this man talks about a woman being after him one more time, I'm just going to leave. Because for me, I know that's what I am not at church for. Like, I got tired of hearing about the women who were after him. However, after that, I would see all of these young girls, like they would come in with skin tight outfit, face all made up, hair all made up. And it just began to look as if they were all in competition with each other, like fighting for his love. And so after that, I started looking like, okay, like what is really going on? Because I'm basically dressed like plain Jane. I really did not see too many older people there. It was him because, he was young. And then also there were a lot of young women there as well. And so it happened so that every year, not even even less than a year, I would say once every 3 or 6, whatever months, I began hearing about different things about him. They were supposedly allegations or supposedly scandals, right? So after the first one happened, I began searching YouTube. And I began seeing these different things about my so-called pastor. The different things I was seeing, like one person, and they call her a hood prophetess or whatever. But even though these stories may have sounded crazy, and I want to take out the time right now to apologize to anyone who has put their story out about this man, and I never believed them. Because until it happens to you, until you fall prey, it's not gonna be believable. Like right now, some of you guys may not believe what I'm saying, but that's okay. I know it happened to me. I was there 5 years. I was in his church, Jacksonville, Florida, operating in his ministry. So you can't really tell me that it was not real because I was engaged in it. All right. So basically, that was happening. And so it was basically where there were allegations coming out where he was having sexual encounters with women, with men. There was also a man on there, which I believe he was an infant, right? And he was really talking about how Brian Carn would Facebook message him, inappropriate information. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, is this pastor, is he gay? Is he liking men and women? So then as time went on, different allegations would come out. And what would happen is the allegations would come out. It would be in the in the media for a while. And then what happens is, this is what was going on behind the scenes while I'm in church. He would never apologize to us. Right. Mm-hmm. Brian Carn would never apologize to us. He would just say, I don't owe y'all anything. Just continue to pray for me. Like he never owed us any explanation or even apologize to us.
So there was no sense of accountability.
There was no
from a leader to the people.
Right. No accountability. And so even though that was weird, we all would just disregard it. Now, each time some people will be leaving there whenever they heard stuff. But then I know for me, because I was asking God, why am I here? Like after I began to hear stuff, I'm like, God, why am I here? And even at one point, and I can truly say, I began to feel like a lust after my pastor. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way about this man? It's as if there was spirits being transferred in that ministry. Right now, I'm married. I have no reason to be lusting after another man, let alone my pastor. And so I told another young lady about it, that, what was going on. I was really embarrassed because I'm like, I never lusted after my pastor before. And so then I told the lady, and so she said, really pray to God to get that off of you. And so come to find out, that lust was the beginning of God just opening my eyes as to what was going on there. So I'm believing honestly, like right now, and I can truly say it, and I did not see this until after I was out of all of this, that this man was operating in witchcraft, right? He was operating in witchcraft, and he was also putting spells and brainwashing people. Now, I'm going to talk about why I say that in just a minute. Now, so everything looked like a church. But during the time it was there, I would literally see him, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I would see him flirting with the women. So it wasn't just the women flirting with him. He was flirting with the women. And then at one point I heard that there was a woman who had his baby. Then I started hearing about other women who had his baby, different women who he was taking care of. Okay. And then also it was like with his band, most of them, from what was told to me, were homosexuals. And there was actually one who he was basically dating the husband and the wife. It was crazy. He was dating, like, the guy, like one of his keyboarders was his girl pretty much. And then the wife was his one of the people he was screwing. So like over time, as I fell with, once I fell with that pastor, Ronnie Bryant was also telling me a lot of stuff that was going on as well. He was telling me, because Ronnie Bryant and Brian Carn's dad were like really close. So I'm just going to go from here. I know I'm skipping around, but
Ronnie Bryant, the man who you fell with was much older than Brian then.
Yeah, he was 64.
Okay. And Brian is still what? Brian is what? 30?
I think he might be 32 now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're gonna get to the area where you fell with this apostle and all that. But just keep on with the story.
Okay. All right. So going back to Brian Carn. So all of these things were happening. And like I said, there was a heavy lust spirit, not just on me. It was in that place because, like I said, there were people more or less, trying to look good for him. And what concerned me about that is that the people were no longer there for God. They were no longer there for God. So during this period, these 4 years, I would be praying hard and hard and hard. God, change him. Because my thing is this right here is that I understand that people struggle. He's a man, single man, but I'm like, why is he still single? Is it because he likes men and women? Is it because he loves to have these women after him? What is the reason? Like, he never was married. However, what was told to me was that he was having the women come in and out from out of town, and he was spending time with them on the weekend. But I'm sorry, that gets later on. Let me just start from here. But at any rate, there were so many women in there, and I was starting to hear like a lot of stuff. I even heard saw where a few women were about to have a fight because they were both fighting for his love. It was just so crazy. It was the craziness going on. It was always so chaotic. Okay. And so then my 4th year of being there, I'm sorry. Let me back up. During the years, there was one of his musicians where Brian Carn, and he admitted it, slept with this musician's wife while that musician was out of town for some family matter.
Which musician is that?
Oh my God, his name was Pierre, and you can look it up on YouTube because and what happened was, it's so weird because it's like Brian, like, I guess he already know when something is happening, because what he'll do is he'll put the church on a fast so that we're not looking at social media, so we don't see anything. However, Pierre got really smart. Pierre was really smart. His last name is with low
so get me right. So this whole thing about Brian Carn sleeping with married women, behind their husbands who are sort of like ministry partners with him.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just a one-off, because I thought, okay, with this situation here.
Yes.
So this is Senegal, right?
Yes, that's the most recent one.
Bishop Senegal with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out and said, Brian Carn slept with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
He was very explicit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Carn obviously didn't deny it,
Right.
accepted it, but in a very manipulative way, where he was blaming people, his church members, for not praying enough for him.
Right.
For saying, well, I'm a young person. Well, I'm this. Well, I'm that. Sort of like trying to justify it. So it seems like there's just the atmosphere there is so no wonder the spirit now, sort of like infected you.
Right. And so that's what I want to get into. This is where the witchcraft is going to come into play, because I'm like, I was still trying to figure out, how did this happen to me? Oh my goodness. But as I mentioned before, one key thing, the lust, that happened the very first year. The lust spirit in there was so heavy. The perversion, I mean, it was just so ridiculous. But even the Bible talks about even the very elect would be deceived. This is the case of that. This is the case of that, where it's like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, God, I pray a lot. I do this. How in the world did this still happen? So what happened was the very last year. Oh, no, I'm sorry. During the year, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but I remember throughout the years, he will always have trips to Africa. Right. And then always he had like different African, prayer partners and prayer people. And he will always tell us, saying that y'all can't pray. If you want to get a prayer through, you need to have an African in your life. They pray and they deal with demons that we don't deal with here. So it's almost like he was trying to, like, in a way, let us know that he tricking us, but really he's not. So I'm beginning to put all this stuff together.
Yeah.
And so he was basically
saying maybe he went to Ghana. A lot of prophets go to Ghana to get some sort of to see a witch doctor.
Yes.
Not a lot of them that did that. And he was in Ghana. I knew he went to Ghana. I knew he visited Ghana. He's online. People can see that, can check that out. And Ghana is very profound. There's this hill where you go to, you meet a witch doctor and all that. For some reason, Ghana, a lot of them go to Ghana. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Maybe he came and, to get himself covenanted into these things.
And right, and that's what I'm about to go into. I was like, I would be praying so hard because and then praying for him. It was so much warfare coming on my life. And then I was like, God, what is this I'm dealing with? What is? And so one night, and I think I told you before, I came across either on YouTube or somewhere the book called Church Mafia. And I'm like, when I read in that book, I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, like this stuff is what's going on here. So that's what I gathered. I gathered that he would go there to obtain some powers as it relates to that power, that sex, that money, and like these spells that he was doing. He was literally like putting witchcraft, like he was putting spells on us, like he was brainwashing us. And so I started thinking, I'm like, why in the world did I fall with Ronnie Bryant when I'm married? And actually, when I got out of this, different people, when I told people I was no longer at this cult, they were like, oh my gosh, I'm glad you're gone. Like somebody, like one of my cousins told me, he was like, I saw something on you. And I said, why didn't you say anything? He said, because when you're in those things, he was like, you would not have believed me. Then another person said that they would see me from the broadcast and I just looked different. I had a whole different demeanor about me. And then I asked somebody else who had actually left that ministry, and I said, hey, I'm going to ask you something real crazy, but I'm going to ask you because it is embarrassing. Like, who does this? Like, we don't talk about this stuff in America. So I was like, I feel like I had a spell on me. I don't really believe in witchcraft, but after reading this book and this and that. And so the person told me, he was like, yes, there was a spell on you. And this is how it felt. I knew what I was doing, but at the same time, it's like I didn't care. It's as if I was awake, but I was a walking dead. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but it's like in church, I would have never slept with somebody else, especially if I'm married, not even a pastor. I would have never been lusting after the pastor. Not saying I'm not human, but these are things I never experienced. I would have never been sleeping with a pastor and then the next day going to church and doing intercessory prayer. I would have not been playing with God like that. Right. And so now I'm seeing what they've been doing for years. Brian Carn, Ronnie Bryant, and there were a couple of more. And after some time, I'm hearing that this transition house that they have, more of the other pastors were sleeping with the women. Now, this is what Ronnie Bryant Sr. was telling me. And it's so crazy because him and Brian Carn, they were both like, it's like they were both jealous of each other. And when Ronnie Bryant would get mad at Brian Carn, he would always talk to me about what was going on. So I knew about, because he was always in a lot of meetings. So I knew about other stuff that was going on there. It's just that it was just so crazy that the people, because they're idolizing Brian Carn, that they do not see it. And I was really humiliated. I was embarrassed that this stuff happened to me, because I'm just like, this stuff happened. It looked like in the pulpit, he's preaching, he's teaching, he's supposed to be laying hands on the sick and they're supposed to be recovering, but there was no healing going on. All there was a lot of money being taken up. He's getting rich and the poor people there were getting poor, right? So he was basically stealing from the poor, having sex, even down to allegedly, even down to the girls who were age 17. When we were in the Jacksonville church, it was the worst I'd ever seen it. I'm seeing girls walk around with eyelashes, even these little girls who should be like a little teenager, they're walking around with heels on, skin tight outfits, and their parents are there. And I'm like, how are you allowing this monster to sleep with your child? So it was just a lot of stuff that I was hearing going on. I was hearing about a lot of infinite. We're in the pool, was in the band and on the praise team. It had just began like a lot of homosexuals coming. Not saying that God is not like the homosexual, but they were not there for deliverance. They were there for an acceptance. It's as if anything and everybody was being accepted there, right? Nobody was being told about their sin or like what's, sin, because what happened is that when Brian Carn heard about what happened with me and Ronnie Bryant, he basically was saying that he told his members that he came across the pulpit and said that, y'all, I can't set Ronnie Bryant down or Pastor Bryant down because we are all doing something. What kind of leadership is that? What kind of leadership is that? What is that teaching the people? And even to this day, a lot of the people don't even talk to me from there. To be quite frank, I honestly just want to disassociate myself from that whole stuff. It was totally sickening. And what happens is, even after that picture you just finished showing with the bishop, him sleeping with the bishop's wife, Brian Carn sat down for a couple of months, and guess what? He's back up preaching again. And the people have forgiven him. It's as if they basically forgot about everything that he's done. And they're accepting this. And even with the man who I slept with, this is how I figured out what that this was witchcraft and then narcissism, is because the guy I slept with, or who I was having the adulterous relationship with, Ronnie Bryant Sr., basically he started acting funny, and I was always at his place. We were like, he had me at his place like pretty much every day. I wasn't even divorced from my husband yet. And so it was crazy because that lasted for like almost a year. And then he started. And
he was married.
Yes, he was married.
Yeah.
But the whole time, his wife was not even at the church. She never came down. And there were on a few occurrences where I told her, I was like, you know what? I was like, this is not right. Like, I got to leave. I know I'm married. You're married, but I'm about to get.
Were you having problems in your marriage then? Or was he having problems in his marriage then?
And for me or for him?
For both of you.
For me, my husband and I, honestly, we were still dating. I think what happened is this: he was working hard a lot and I was working a lot. And so what happens with that, with couples, when like the enemy can come in when you're not being intimate or when you're not really, so I believe that's what happened. And then also that same year, I think it was 2019, my dad passed. So I was at a very vulnerable state in my life. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. I was at a very vulnerable state in my life to where I just need to feel love. And so that was when that pastor, Ronnie Bryant Sr., came along, and he was showing me attention. And then in the beginning, because my dad was an older person and this man was an older person,
I mean, we're talking about a man who's probably 20 years, 25 years older than you or so.
Yeah. Right. And I looked at him as my dad. That's the reason why I'm just like, okay, so I believe that's how the enemy came in. And this is how that witchcraft came in. But as I'm talking now, I just really feel like Brian Carn was behind it, because even though I was there at that church, I was not engaged in any of that stuff going on. I was really there for God. So I honestly believe that it was that witchcraft, those powers that he was putting the spells on people that really got me caught up with that. And I was a target because I was not going along with being one of his girls or, just engaging in any of that stuff. And so, and I know it may not sound sense, but because I know I'm trying to piece this together. But so basically, when Ronnie Bryant came, he came as, as a pastor, supposed to be, sympathizing with me and helping me get through that, with the passing of my dad. And so it happened so that it was otherwise. So Pastor Bryant, or Ronnie Bryant, saw my husband. He met my husband one time, and he immediately began trying to have conversations with me. Ronnie Bryant immediately trying to have conversations with me, saying that, hey, you and your husband, you are unequally yoked. And so from that point, he was trying to pull me away from my husband. Then I did not know that he had these intentions. Right. So I'm thinking to myself that, oh my God, he reminded me of my dad. I'm going to really be able to receive the love from my dad that I never had, because my dad, I really never spent the time with him. I believe that we left him when we were about 7 years old. So I had missed that whole point of my life. So I know that there was a door of vulnerability open in both areas, my marriage and with my dad. So with my husband, I don't believe he ever cheated on me. I never cheated on him. We were still very cordial. I think it was just the fact that we basically had just begun to like coexist. That was it. But I would have never cheated on my husband. And that's the honest to God truth. So this is how I know that it was, I had a spell over me. So one thing led to another. Ronnie Bryant Sr., this is how he got me. He began reaching out to me. And the first way he got me was this right here. He was like, hey, I want you to be my event manager. So of course, I'm like, yes, sir.
So Ronnie is an apostle or pastor.
Yes.
And he was also based in Florida, state of Florida.
He came from Maryland, but he's out of where is that? Michigan.
Okay, and his church is there.
Mm-hmm. Now let me just tell you about him like really quick. Somebody told me after the fact, allegedly, that he was kicked out of his church because he used to be a pastor in his own church because he was sleeping with young girls. And one of the young girls' parents told him, and I'm assuming he was kicked out of that church. Also, Ronnie Bryant Sr. told me himself that he believes that he has another child out there. And I even asked him, I'm like, why don't you try to connect with this child? Because that child is just like his daughter, is another daughter. He was like, no, I don't want to do that. So Ronnie Bryant has been doing this sort of thing for over 20 years, pretty much all his life. So he's used to it. He's used to this craftiness. And so
this is a man in his 60s. So we're talking about now.
He's been doing it all. And honestly, speaking with his wife had cancer. And I honestly believe now, looking at how he did me, that his wife's cancer was created because of his negligence and because of his cheating on his wife. I believe he has 6 children. 6 children. And I'm like, how can you do that to your wife? His wife is 71 now, I believe. She's older than him. But I just started thinking about that stuff. I'm just like, I'm hurting somebody else. There's no way that I can keep doing this. He even called his wife, have you ever seen a 70-year-old body? Like he acted as if he was embarrassed of her. And I'm like, why don't you bring your wife down here? Now he made it seem as if they were not together. But after a conversation that I heard between him and her, this lady still believes that, I guess she still believes that there is hope. But all the while, she's never been down here, and she doesn't know that he's screwing other women this whole time. So yeah, that was just very sad to me. But basically, with Ronnie Bryant, he lured me in by, acting as if he was really caring for me, about what happened to me, when in actuality he did not. So one thing led to another. We ended up going out to eat one night after some service, because remember, I was his event manager. And so we were trying to promote an event that was going to be happening at the, I'm just going to call it at the Cult. And so at the time, I did not know, what I was going on. So after this event that me and Ronnie Bryant attended, we actually went out to eat. And so it was in that night. And remember, I had just lost my dad. And then my marriage was like in a coexisting state. And so basically with that, we had dinner, and one thing led to another. We ended up going walking after the dinner. And then we were walking on the river walk. And so then from there, he leaned in to kiss me. And I was like, oh my God. And so that night when he kissed me, he also was doing some other sexual things as well. And so I was like, oh my God, did I just cheat on my husband? It was crazy because I had never been in anything like that before. I had never been approached like that before. But for the full year, this is how I know I must have had a spell on me. When I was sneaking out the house in the beginning, it just became to where I was spending the night with Ronnie Bryant. And pretty much I was there like almost every night of the week. Ronnie Bryant kept me away from my friends. I remember I had one friend and she was like, get away from that man. He's like the devil. My friends were literally trying to tell me back off, like this is the devil, but I would not listen to anybody. I would not listen to anybody. And to this day, I wish that I would have listened to somebody. That's the reason why I had to come on and tell this, because I'm trying to tell somebody, if this is resonating with you, please listen. Like, this is not a story. So it's as if it was happening for real. And Ronnie Bryant was showering me with love. So I believe everything he said. I barely talked to any of my friends at church. We can go to church that day, and when we get from church, go to his house and have sex. During the church, he was doing sexual stuff with me, just making sexual. It just was not right, period. And so he was also telling me about Brian Carn, that he would do the same thing. Brian Carn used profanity. He was also telling me about how Brian Carn would be talking about the other pastors. There was also other things that was going on with Brian Carn as it relates to him being a homosexual. It was other things, let me see, about where Ronnie Bryant Sr. was telling me that Brian Carn would have different ones of his girlfriends at that church during that particular week or weekend. Now I know this as well because for a few months, Ronnie Bryant Sr. was living at Brian Carn's apartment. And so guess who was there as well? I was there as well. So I'm not lying at all. I was at Brian Carn's apartment for a series of maybe like 4 months. It was actually when the pandemic had started, March 2020. I was there for a period of few months. And so what happened is Brian Carn, whenever he had one of his females in town for the weekend, he would ask, either he would get a hotel for Ronnie Bryant, or he would ask Ronnie Bryant to go somewhere else. And of course, I would be staying in a hotel with Ronnie, or Ronnie may say, oh my God, I'm so tired of this. I'm like, what happened? He got another one of his girlfriends here, so I got to go get a hotel. So that happened several times. So you guys, I'm not lying at all. I'm telling my truth, and this is the truth, right? So basically, those things would happen. And like I said, it was just a cycle with the same stuff going on. Another thing that I was seeing at this particular cult was that women who did not wear makeup or anything, and this is how I know I believe people were being brainwashed. I started seeing every woman there with the hair, with the makeup. It's like they were all competing, for his love. It's like that whole lust spirit was just saturated. That whole area was saturated with the lust. And I remember that particular church or building was so small, it was like a little rat trap. But we were all asked to parade around for offering. Now, the way it would look is that all the pastors would be standing up front, and we will all have to parade around. And I'm like, why do we all need to parade around to give our offering when this church is so small? It made me realize that they were probably looking at all of us to see whose number they were going to try to get, who they were probably going to try to sleep with. It just gave them a chance to see all of our bodies, because most of those girls, they were down for it anyway. From what was told to me was that some of these girls said that when Brian Carn sleeps with them, he's telling them that they're going to get some kind of power. And then some other girls, because from what was told to me, he was promising them that he was going to marry them. There were like a lot of girls here who had low self-esteem. They were very vulnerable, and they really, you can tell that they wanted to feel love. Because if they're going to believe that, that kind of stuff, obviously their self-esteem had to be really low. It had to
what's the percentage of the gender divide between male and female in the church?
1% men, 99% women.
1% men. No.
Right.
Let's go 10%. Can we make it 10%?
Okay, 10, and we'll say 90%. But look,
the ratio is just so, but just so unbalanced and not some sort of like unhealthy, maybe. But
right.
It's not like God cannot do stuff like that, but maybe the girls that are there for a different reason, or he attracted them with that kind of spirit for a different reason.
And that's what I think it is.
I'm not supposed to say you cannot have a very honest pastor with integrity leading a church that is predominantly women, 90% women. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying people follow the spirit.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I believe, and remember how I said in the beginning, how somebody shared his post with me on Facebook. And from that point on, it's like, oh my God, like this man is like awesome. Like I just honestly believe that it was the spirit. I believe that he obtained these powers, these witchcraft powers, and it was the spirit that leads the people into there. And I honestly believe that at one point he was really loving God, but I think due to some hurt, like you mentioned before, and you had also mentioned bipolar, he's truly bipolar, because one time he can act one way, next thing you know, he act like a bulldog. And then even Ronnie Bryant, the same way. I'm like, that's why I call them narcissists. They have NPD. They're like, they have some kind of disorder. And instead of them getting out the pulpit, they don't even know that they're even sick. But they're pushing that sickness upon more people, and they're ruining people's lives. They're ruining people's marriages. They're taking from people. And it's just like nobody wants to see this, but this stuff is real. Now, I know with Brian Carn, he didn't grow up with his dad. And I know with Ronnie Bryant, he was a mother's boy and his dad was not there. So I'm assuming that somewhere they wanted to feel love. So now instead of them it's almost like they're angry with the world. And it's like some of the spirit is taking over and they're harming people. They're like bleeding on the people and they need to get out of the pulpit. Anybody like them need to get out of the pulpit, go get themselves set free and just stop it. But instead of them doing that, all of those spirits, the Leviathan spirit, the Ahab, the Jezebel spirit, because they're so arrogant, they choose to continuously manipulate the people. Right. And when somebody like me come out, they're going to smear campaign me. I'm quite sure that they're going to talk bad about me like they talked bad about me before. And they're going to make it look like I'm the devil, which I'm not.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. How you decided to leave the church and what you experienced in the hands of Brian, how they tried to tarnish your name and how they tried to control and manipulate you, how they sent people. You even got death threats. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so after I had let Brian Carn know, we had a meeting. I let him know what happened to me with his pastor, Ronnie Bryant Sr., and he claimed he didn't know, but I'm quite sure he did. I believe everything was intentional. He had the nerve to say, okay, I guess it's time to find somebody else. Are you jealous? Like he literally had the nerve to say, was I jealous of Ronnie Bryant talking to somebody else? And I'm like, oh my God. Now that's a clear example of saying he's doing the same thing. They all do the same thing.
Yeah. It's normal. It's normal.
Right. And so then now he tried to get me to stay there. Him and another pastor tried to get me to stay there. I stayed there 1 month longer. It was detrimental. It was so traumatic. I just I was having all kinds of attacks. It was crazy. So basically what was going on is Brian Carn, he was still acting very nice to me. Because I guess he wanted me to feel like, he had nothing to do with it. I don't think that he wanted me to know his true self. So, he was still trying to act nice to me when all the while it was still being, manipulating. But what happened was I ended up leaving like a month later. I couldn't take it no longer. I literally left. And so it was when I left was when, and actually before I left, I take that back. The smear campaign, from what was told to me after the fact, had already began while I was there, right? I used to operate in leadership. So they sat me down so I could get myself together. Okay, go figure. And so basically what was going on was it was spread that by one of the pastors that me and my husband were divorced. So I had different people asking me about my marriage. That was spread. There was always rumors going on there, but even before mine. So it was spread about that. And then it was spread about me and Ronnie Bryant Sr. sleeping with each other, because I can tell different people, they would not come out with it, but they were hinting off, right? They were hinting off. So when I finally left, it was people saying that, oh, she left because she was embarrassed. She needed to stay here and face, face the radio. She was embarrassed. No, it wasn't that at all. It was just that right there. God did not want me in that. He did not want me in that atmosphere. That was not even a healthy atmosphere. And so basically after I left, the smear campaign went crazy. Like my name, Ronnie Bryant's name, was around that whole building because I was well known there. I was well known there. So my name was smeared. And from what was told to me, it was smeared by Brian Carn. Because remember, I only had the conversation with the pastors, nobody else. And what one of the pastors told me, they said that if this gets out into the congregation, it's because you or Ronnie said something. I know I did not say anything. The only thing that I did say to some people were the people who I needed to pray for me to get through this situation. But at any rate, it was spread. It was told that it was spread by me. Now, by Brian Carn, and there was another pastor who has since left there, but it was spread. So it was very hurtful. I promise you, it was hurtful because I had spent the last 5 years of my life there. I was faithful. I was even praying for Brian Carn for his change. And then I'm like, this happens to me. My marriage was broken up. I was out of $10,000, let alone all the money that I would give to the ministry. $10,000 was given to Ronnie D. Bryant Sr., right? All the money that I gave to the ministry. They had something called Prophets Chambers. I was always recognized for giving to that. So I was one of the biggest givers there. So I was needed to help make that ministry stay afloat pretty much. So it's like, I'm quite sure they didn't want me to leave. And then after I left, although the smear campaign was going on, I still had people calling back to get me to come back to that ministry. And I'm like, no, I can't come back here. But yeah, so my main thing that I want to leave, and I know I probably have skipped over a few things, but the main thing that I want to say is I just really pray to God that these people are awakened, not only there, but as you were talking about Juanita Bynum, Clarence McClendon, I honestly believe that there are more pastors in the state of Florida, in the U.S. who are engaged, because as I'm seeing how these connections are linked up, and that's what I'm looking at as well. If I see Juanita Bynum at Brian Carn's church, or if I see if I just see these connections, it's a big possibility that they're operating under those same spirits. It's just a big possibility that they're on the same thing. So I'm actually currently am not at the church right now, but I'm loving God. I actually have my own ministry. But I want to say to the people, please develop your relationship with God. Do not rely upon this prophetic movement, right? To just be psyched out of your money, to be psyched out of healing, to be psyched out of everything that you own. It is because God's people are so gullible, right? We're so gullible because we don't have a relationship with him. He wants us to have a relationship with him, not with man. And then the people begin to idolize man. God is not happy about that. We need to be ready for his second return. Remember, the Bible talks about how many false prophets were becoming in his name, but they're really wolves in sheep's clothing. And people are trying to call me a demon, but guess what? You're sitting in a congregation with a demon, with a narcissist, with Satan himself, Sunday in, Sunday out, Thursday in, Thursday out, Wednesday in, Wednesday out, believing them to be sent by God, when in actuality, they've been practicing with the witch doctor. Okay? So please, the only way you're going to know this is if you have discernment. So that showed me now all these people, even the ones who you're talking about, Uncle Solomon, with these other prophets who are dying, that's showing me that they're following man, they're allies man, they have no relationship. They're dependent upon this man, supposedly of God, to lay hands on them, to answer all of their questions or their needs, when in actuality, all they need to do is develop a real relationship with God.
Right, 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 right. It's, I tell people over and over again that when you go to a church, once you choose to be under a minister, a prophet, a pastor, a bishop, you are submitting to the spirit that that person carries. That person carries a spirit, and he has spread that spirit into other people.
Right.
As the leader. So you're going under an umbrella because you agree is the place you want to be. You have opened up your spirit
Right.
to another spirit.
Right.
And that might not be the spirit of God. So that's why I tell people, be careful who lays hands on you.
Exactly.
Be careful who prays for you. Be careful who you sit down to listen to, because it involves your spirit. It means your spirit is open. A lot of people are not trained to sit down and listen to somebody and be critical, with what they are saying, and to be able to objectively say, look, is this biblical? And I'm sure that happened to you because you lost your senses. That's my summary of what happened to you for 5 years there. You lost your senses. Grew up in church, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can be a pastor yourself. You can, pastor who's really seeking for God, or you can go under a leadership into a church and lose your senses. Exactly. You see, the mentally, spirit is a spiritual thing, but then it affects you mentally, and you begin to behave in certain ways that you've never behaved before. You begin to do things. You begin to struggle with certain sin that you'd never struggled with that before.
Right.
Right? It's because your spirit was open. You believe Brian Cain was a true man of God, and you really went there because you were seeking for God. And we must be careful. There's a lot of people that I hear that this, I'm sure Minister Sheila spoke to you, what she had shared, is just a case of, I need to be careful. The level of which I know the word of God would be my help when I need to discern a pastor, a prophet, if they are of God or not, if their teachings is of God or not. And this is a big help, especially here in Africa. I mean, I know it's happening in America, but like you said, they don't talk about it that much in America. But in Africa, we are like, we've taken a notch up, where we have magicians leading churches. We have witch doctors. So it's not like you go visit the witch doctor as a bishop and then come to your church. No, the bishop is a witch doctor himself. So we're talking about a level where people are being enslaved, and all because, like Sheila said, we need to know God for ourselves.
Right.
If I don't know God, I don't care who you are. But I make decisions based on the level with which I know God. God can say something through you, but it has to resonate with me, and your testimony is just so, I know I wanted to ask you, there's a question I wanted to ask you. It's like how it ended with Rodney. How you when after you cheated on your husband, did you open up to your husband? Did he know about it? How did you move on from there, especially in your relationship with God? Because adultery, when you commit adultery, God is with God, but there's also other people involved, isn't it?
Right.
Because sometimes we think we can just go commit adultery and then I'll pray to God. God will forgive me, and then I'll do it. God will forgive you, but God will tell you, just like you did. You went to Brian, ask your man of God, ask your pastor, and you said, look, this was something I did that I didn't like.
Right. So basically, when it was ended with Ronnie Bryant, and actually Ronnie Bryant Sr. did not want to end it. He was still trying to hoover me. He was still trying to say, hey, he even told me, he said, are you still going to lead your the church? And I was like, yes. Why? He was like, because nobody wants you here. But he was still wanting to have an outside relationship with me. I had to completely go no contact with him. He tried to reach back out to me like several times. I believe the last time he tried to hoover me after I left in November, it was decent. It was actually Christmas Day. And I was like, you know what, this is like an end. Like he was just, it was, and it's crazy because when I'm just believing, because prayer was already instilled in me. And this is why I'm so concerned about the babes in Christ. Prayer was already instilled in me. And somebody had to be praying for me, because once that sheet was lifted from my eyes,
right,
it looked like a totally different person. I was like, ew, like how, what? Like
5 years,
really
5 years.
Daddy. I'm like, yo, like what? I was just so mad at myself. I was like, ah. And then on top of that, my marriage. I mean, you guys, and what? I was not with a boyfriend. I was with a husband. My marriage got broke up. Right? My marriage was broken up. I seen other people's marriage broken up. So really, my husband, and I'm so glad he never went with me to that church. And it's hard because I tried to talk to, my ex-husband now. I tried to talk to him about it because it hurt me, and it still make me teary whenever I think that I hurt somebody. And I'm like, God, you know what? Like this right here, it just it hurt me because I'm like, I hurt somebody else, and I was under a spell. It's crazy because I've been in church like all my life. You don't expect to come to these places, right? Because during the week you're at work. You come to church as a place of refuge, as a place of healing. But no, these were wolves. And just like that, witch doctors. I call these right here warlocks. They were warlocks, deceiving these people. These people are really coming. They're giving their last. They're reaching out for hope. That's a place where you reach out for hope, not to be manipulated and deceived. So it was hurtful on the fact where I truly love these people, when in actuality, you broke my marriage up. You were manipulating me. You were deceiving us, not just me, everybody. Everybody. And so then when I realized that I hurt somebody else because of not because of my religion, but I hurt him, like my ex-husband, not saying that, things were the best, but we were not even a place to where we were supposed to be divorcing. Right. So it's like he never came because he doesn't believe in going to church. So he doesn't believe in going to church for these very reasons right here. Maybe not this intense, but for those reasons, he just feel like all church people are hypocritical. And it made me so upset because I was always, how I talked about the praying wife, the sanctified wife, prays for the husband. So I always been praying for his salvation. I think about his salvation more so than anything else. It's all about the salvation. Now I'm just like, God, allow him to not have this piercing in his heart or his head about church because of something that I did as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want him to never give his life to God because of this, what happened to me. So it stems. It's like it's a trickle effect. So now he and I never had the conversation. When I tried to have the conversation with him, he never wanted to hear because I think it was just too painful for him. I don't think that he would ever really want to hear the truth because we were supposed to be retiring together. We were supposed to be doing everything together. He was always, like, this is my rock, this and that. Like, he really loved me, although he never really showed it the way I needed it. He still loved me his way. So yes, it hurts me that I hurt him, but did I have a chance to talk about it with him? He has not. But I am praying that one day that I will be able, because I'm quite sure he's going to see one of these videos. I'm across all social media. I'm praying that one day that he and I will be able to talk about it. That's right. Good. And so we can just get that out. So yes, I have not had a chance to talk to him.
I'm actually really happy that it's not something that you said you've moved on to. You owe him that accountability, right. and it's never too late, because that way it's just going to help you to be transparent and accountable, even in your relationship with God. Because there are certain things that the way that we relate to other people, affects the way that we relate to God. I cannot be keeping secrets from people, and then I will think my relationship with God will be okay. It doesn't work that way, right. Because I'm supposed to learn relationship from God and then practice and show people, and there are a lot of people that have gone to churches where those churches destroys their marriage. There's a lot of people. It destroys like Sheila was saying earlier on, it destroyed your children. It destroyed your businesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're after. They want to take that away from you. The devil, and you think you're going to church? No. Or you think the devil is fighting you from the outside? No, it's from the inside.
In the inside.
Church. That's where they have because when the devil fights you from church, it will take you a long time. It will take you 5 years. You would never suspect.
Right.
So it's easier for him to fight you in church, from church, pretending through a pastor, using pastors, using bishops, using religion, just like you said, and all that kind of stuff. It's easier for him because you're going to be very gullible. You would think it's God and you think your enemies are out there. No, no. We need to be able to discern as much as possible. Right. Some of you needs to protect your marriage. Your pastor has no right to begin to tell you what to do and how to behave in your marriage, except you know that you're having problems and and your husband knows you guys did certain things wrong. Mm-hmm. But to begin to even tell you, just like Ronnie told you that that very first time that he met your husband, that look, you guys are not equally yoked.
Right.
You can see the whole game plan. So the whole game plan was for him to sleep with you at the end of the day.
Right.
So it is, I feel your heart, and thank you so much for sharing this story. There's so many comments here that I cannot even put them, just take time to check it out on either on Facebook or on YouTube. There's just so many comments. And please, guys, if you want to reach out to her, you have similar story, or you have questions, please go check out adiscipleforchrist.org, www.adiscipleforchrist.org. Please reach out to her in any way. Is there anything that you feel you need to share that you missed out, Minister Sheila, before we close up?
I'm quite sure I missed something out, but my main thing is this right here is that God he's coming. I don't know if he's coming soon or later, but I just urge everyone to just get your relationship. And what I mean by that, worshiping God, praising God, reading your Bible, asking Holy Ghost, to just, to keep you, asking for discernment. And one other thing that I forgot to say is, if you are a babe in Christ, which I'm so concerned about those babes in Christ, if you're going to a church, I believe you said to Uncle Solomon, if you're going to a church and you're seeing stuff that is not lined up with the word of God, you want to read the word of God yourself, everything, like be a Berean saint. It talks about the Berean saints in the Bible, but if your relationship with God is not that close, it's not that close right now. If it's certain things that are not stemmed by love, you should know to run. Just leave. Don't think twice about, just run, just leave. If you see your pastor trying to make moves at you, that's an indication, run. If you see your pastor trying to ask for too many offerings, for what reason, run. It's just, I don't know what else to look for. If you see like a lot of chaos, like a lot of bickering, run. That's not God. So I think that's about it. And like you mentioned, I have the website of discipleforchrist.org. If someone has a similar story, or if you want to reach out and, ask me a question, I do have like a mailing list, and you can just put your information in there.
So check that out. And before we leave, I just want to share a scripture here from Jeremiah 23:13. It says, among the prophets of Samaria, I saw something disgusting. They prophesy by Baal and led my people Israel astray. What Jeremiah said in the Old Testament is a reality of what we see today. Among the prophets in Florida, among the prophets in Washington, in the US, among the prophets in London, among the prophets in Accra, Ghana, among the prophets in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, among the prophets in Lagos, Nigeria, I saw something disgusting. God is saying, I saw something disgusting. I know when something is disgusting, it's unholy, unrighteous, anything you can think of that alienates you from God. They prophesied by Baal and led my people Israel astray. So they're trying to lead you astray. They're trying to lead your family astray. Some of you need to go and repent because you even put your husbands or your wives into this mess because they were not even ready to go to this, to experience this church and all this kind of. Some of you need to go and repent because your kids are now in trouble because of your inability. I know God forgives, but I just want to show you some tough love. You know, your inability to discern because you wanted something, maybe selfishly wanted something. But we have to know there are prophets that are doing disgusting things across, and we have to keep speaking out, just like Minister Sheila did. Share our story. Some of you have been to some of these guys, deep stuff. Maybe you're not ready to open up now and tell your story, but you can do it confidentially. You can share with Sheila. She can pray for you. You can share with me. There's a lot of people that got in touch with me, but I don't get to put their stuff here because they are not ready to share it. That's fine. But we need to stay together. We need to support each other. We need to keep speaking out. When we see something that's wrong, we speak out. If they don't want to listen, like Sheila said, run.
Right.
Run. You don't need to be an Olympian to run. Run. Everybody can run. You don't need to be an athlete because you'll be saving your spiritual life. You don't want to be in a mess. I know, Sheila, you're still struggling, still coming out of what you've been through the last 5 years and all that. You see, when you get into this mess, right? Even if it's for a year or two, it's going to take you a lot to come out of it, you know? A lot of prayer, a lot of, Bible study, because you need to get rid of the spirit. But some of you will be looking for somebody else to lay hands on you. You've gone to like 5 false prophets and they've laid hands on you. Man, you're in a mess. I'm sorry, you're in a mess. You have to ask God, how do I get out of this? For yourself. If you know deliverance for yourself, you can deliver yourself. You can deliver. If you know deliverance for yourself, you don't need to keep hopping from one conference to another conference, from one church to another church, from one prophet to another prophet. No, may God deliver you from that. He wants you to be the prophet of your life. Right. God can speak through prophets. I'm not taking that away from them. But it seems like the way we adore them is so excessive. The whole prophetic movement has been abused so much that we have lost our minds. We cannot even discern that it's been abused. So let's open our eyes and open our minds to it. Once again, Sheila, thank you so much. You want to say something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I did want to say this right here. For those people who are still attending that cult, when that Brian Carn sat down for those couple of months after, coming out with sleeping with that apostle's wife, he's now back up. I can tell that, it's going to take, because he's been in this practically all his life, it's going to take a whole lot of deliverance, not just sit down 2 months. He's not delivered. He's still operating up on those same spirits. So for those of you guys who are still fooled by that, please just run, right? And if I see that he has not changed, because guess what? He has those same, Ronnie Bryant Sr. is one of them. He got those same pastors up there. And I know if Ronnie Bryant's doing the same thing, and he's still accepting that, nothing has changed. All he did was take a sabbatical, sat down for 2 months, and he's back up doing the same thing. You can even hear about his teachings when he came back up. If you follow him, if you go to his website, his teachings were talking about, a new start, a fresh start. Okay, 2 months, and you've been doing this for how long? And you're a warlock? Not so. You're not delivered. So I just want to say that too. If you're following him, just stop, because the change has not come. The change has not come.
That's right. And that's why you also have to do a bit of research, you guys, around it. These are some of the stuff you can get on YouTube. Brian Carn accused of sleeping with the wife of Bishop Senegal. It's out there. This is not just talking about it. Prophet Brian Carn rebuked by his bishop, Demetrius Senegal. So we're talking about friends, and this is just too much.
Who does that? That's what I'm like.
It gets me really angry. Like, if I have a spiritual gun, just so I can shoot them so they can come back to their senses at least so they can save their soul. Because whatever you see, even false prophets, you want their soul to be safe at the end of the day. Right. That's the best. You don't wish for them to just pass away like that, or the worst for them. No. You can disagree. We can come here and disagree with them, but you still love the person. Because that's a mandate from God. Right. If I don't love my enemy, how are they going to know that I'm a Christian? I can disagree with my enemy, passionately disagree with them, passionately disagree with their choices, but I'm not going to hate them. I can disagree with the false prophet. I always disagree with them here, but I cannot say I don't love them. I cannot hate them. So please, let's not carry the spirit of hate also. Right. From our past experiences. Let's not. Please, the spirit of hate disconnects you to God. God does not understand that language of hate. Do not try to justify it. There is no justification for hate. It doesn't work that way. Right. That's what it takes to walk in the spirit. Sorry?
Right. And that's the reason why it was so hurtful, because I looked at Brian Carn as a brother in Christ, and I'm just like, it's hurtful because I'm seeing the enemy just take over him. He's young, and I'm just like it's sad because I know that it's a mental issue, and I definitely, I don't hate any of them. I just know I don't, but it's just so sad just to see how the enemy ruined his life and other people's lives as well. It's yeah.
No, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We pray that the Lord will continue to strengthen you. May he continue to lead you, Minister Sheila. May he continue to uphold you. May you continue to be a bridge for people who have experienced this sort of like pain and brokenness. Brokenness created by so-called people in church. May he continue to strengthen you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you, and God bless.
God bless.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining me. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please share this video. This is a video I think is worth sharing, right? This is a video that we can share as much as possible. So tag somebody, tag them, and share with them, just so they can have a look at it, But may the Lord bless you too, and thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Psalm 23. God has set a table for two. One chair for himself, the king, and the second one, believe it or not, is for you. But of course, the enemy wants a seat at the table too. Anxiety wants a seat, envy wants a seat, worry and frustration want a seat. But don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Look up, go up. You're invited up the mountain of God. Move towards infinite power, splendor, love, and beauty, healing and restoration. When we gaze upon the Almighty, we are changed by the captivation. Empowered to take every thought captive in the battle of the mind. Shame is silenced by his glory, and our future redefined. So draw near to Jesus. The shepherd is good. Our God is faithful. Take the place prepared for you, and don't give the enemy a seat at your table.
That's a great book, so make sure you get a copy of that. So thank you so much, guys, for being here. I'm going to be back here tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to have our weekly, prayer for Africa, intercession. So it's just going to be a whole time of prayer. I'm going to bring one or two friends that would also help lead prayers for us. So please join us tomorrow. And tomorrow evening at 8 p.m., I'm going to be talking about another American apostle based in Cape Town, South Africa, who's been working in the community, but a lot of scandals have come out of it, So I'm going to bring a couple of the gals and the guys, the people who have been a part of the church, and also leaders and some of the victims. We're going to be talking to them tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Yeah, so please join us. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Marriage. Of course, marriage is not your normal pop and face kind of relationship. It brings both excitement and disappointments. If you find yourself married in community of property and often delayed in your business transactions and dealings, worry no more. Because Masinya Attorneys uses the law to help you change from in community of property to out of community of property and vice versa. Call Masinya Attorneys today on 084 383 7747. We will sort you out with a high court application, and of course you get to keep your spouse. That's Masinya Attorneys on 084 383 7747.